What we see is a culture who have got the technology to quarry giant blocks of stone.
High in the Peruvian Andes, just beyond the ancient city of Cusco, rise the walls of Sacsayhuamán, terraces of stone so massive and precise that they have withstood every earthquake for more than 5 centuries. Each block weighs dozens, sometimes hundreds of tons. Yet between them, there is no mortar, no filler, not even the space for a single blade of grass. Archaeologists once called it craftsmanship, the result of patient shaping and generations of labor. But when engineers began scanning the walls with laser instruments and digital mapping tools, the results challenged that assumption.
Whether they were really using the tools in the ancient toolbox, or whether there was something else at work.
The stones were not cut into simple rectangles. Each one carried multiple faces, interlocked in a geometry that distributed pressure through every direction, as if the structure were designed to absorb movement, not resist it. If the data are correct, these walls behave less like monuments and more like engineered systems, machines of balance built from solid rock. Were the Inca walls a triumph of human skill, or the surviving fragments of an ancient energy design that once stabilized the earth itself? The engineering that shouldn't exist. To understand how the Inca walls endured for centuries, researchers returned to the highlands of Cusco to measure what the eye could not. At an altitude of 3,500 meters, the morning air at Sacsayhuamán feels thin and metallic. The fortress rises in silent precision, its stones glowing under the first light of the sun. Before the crowds arrive, a joint expedition from the National University of San Marcos and UPC Barcelona sets up scanners, magnetometers, and ground-penetrating radar along the perimeter. Every block, every seam, every contour is recorded in microscopic detail. The data reveal something no conventional method can fully explain. The gaps between stones measure less than 1 millimeter, tighter than the tolerance used in modern prefabricated steel joints. No mortar binds the surfaces, no filler softens the pressure. When the digital models are run through finite element simulations, the pattern holds. The polygonal shapes distribute stress diagonally through the wall, allowing it to flex with seismic motion rather than break against it. Even under ground acceleration equivalent to a magnitude 6.5 earthquake, the structure stabilizes itself. Material studies deepen the puzzle. The stones are volcanic, andesite, rich in silica, and streaked with traces of magnetite. Under microscopic inspection, thin films of glassy silica appear fused along some joints. Too local to suggest large-scale heating, yet too uniform to be random. No furnaces, chisels, or scaffolds have ever been found. The surfaces seem molded by a process that combines heat and pressure from within the rock itself. Magnetic readings complicate the story further. Instruments detect small but consistent variations, 10 to 15 nanoteslas above background levels, clustering precisely along the joints where the structural stress is greatest. Some geophysicists attribute these signals to mineral alignment formed during cooling. Others wonder whether they are the lingering imprint of the same unknown process that shaped the stones in the first place. Traditional archaeology insists the walls were built through patient hand-fitting and polishing, refined across generations. Yet no intermediate stages, no quarries bearing half-cut blocks, no lost tools explain such precision on this scale. The evidence of the method is missing, only the result remains. If these walls behave more like dynamic systems than static barriers, their builders may have understood something deeper. That endurance comes not from resisting movement, but from mastering it. 5 centuries of earthquakes have failed to move a single stone. Could the Inca have discovered a design that merged architecture with geology? Or were they inheriting a system that had already mastered both? The legacy blueprint. When the data from Cusco was uploaded into the neural model at the Universidad Nacional de Ingeniería in Lima, the algorithm did something unexpected. Instead of classifying the Inca masonry as unique, it labeled it as familiar. The artificial intelligence system compared the geometric matrix of Sacsayhuamán's walls against a global database of ancient architecture, from the basalt foundations of Baalbek in Lebanon to the limestone casing stones of Giza, and even the precision joints of Japanese megalithic terraces. To the researchers' surprise, the forms aligned with mathematical consistency. The same proportional ratios reappeared again and again, width to height to diagonal, following a ratio sequence nearly identical to that used in modern anti-seismic architecture. In each case, Sacsayhuamán, the structure seemed to obey a mechanical principle. Energy was not resisted, but redirected. Pressure traveled diagonally across interlocked planes, dispersing along the base, instead of accumulating at weak points. The more force applied, the more stable the structure became. A physical paradox described in the engineering report as a self-correcting system of mass. Self-correcting system of mass. When geophysical records were added to the model, the anomaly deepened. The magnetic readings taken along the joints of Sacsayhuamán revealed subtle but consistent positive deviations, between 10 and 15 nanoteslas higher than the surrounding terrain. When these anomalies were mapped against comparative surveys from Baalbek and Giza, the alignment was nearly exact. Each site exhibited magnetic concentrations along stress dispersal seams, as though the same design logic, or the same underlying force, had guided their creation. Statistical modeling placed the probability of such geometric and magnetic uniformity occurring by chance at less than 1 in 100,000. At that point, coincidence became the weakest explanation. To test whether the pattern extended through time, researchers drilled core samples beneath the visible walls. What they found changed the question entirely. Beneath the Inca stonework lay a deeper layer of weathered andesite blocks, eroded, partially buried, and older than any structure in Cusco. Isotopic analysis placed their age at nearly 12,000 years, predating not only the Inca Empire, but the known beginnings of Andean civilization itself. Local oral tradition had long hinted at such inheritance. Andean chronicles speak of Viracocha, the teacher from the water who rose after a great flood and showed the first builders how to make stone flow like fire. Historians had long interpreted the story as myth, a symbolic retelling of creation. But when linguists fed parallel myths from Egypt, Sumer, and Mesoamerica into the same neural model, the system detected 73 shared linguistic markers, phrases describing builders who returned after the waters, and those who restored the world. The parallels were too precise, too repeated, too structured to dismiss. The data suggested that the builders of Cusco were not innovators, but inheritors. The last curators of a design logic older than history itself. If geometry, magnetism, and myth all converge upon the same origin, then perhaps the question is no longer how the Inca walls were made, but what memory they were preserving. Were these fortresses the achievement of a single civilization, or the surviving fragments of a global engineering system passed down from an age the Earth itself has forgotten? The Energy Convergence Gate. By early 2025, the focus of the Sacsayhuamán research project had shifted from geometry to energy. The precision of the walls was now less mysterious than the invisible forces flowing through them. Magnetic data from previous surveys had shown small but repeating irregularities, values that pulsed with such precision that random interference could no longer explain them. To test the phenomenon, a multidisciplinary team from the Pontifical Catholic University of Peru installed a network of high-sensitivity magnetotelluric sensors around the fortress plateau. For weeks, the instruments measured subtle fluctuations in the bedrock's electrical conductivity. The results were consistent: a rhythmic oscillation between 7 and 8 hertz, perfectly matching the Earth's fundamental electromagnetic heartbeat known as the Schumann resonance. At first, the team assumed a geological origin. Cusco lies near intersecting microfaults, and magma movement beneath the Andes can distort local magnetic fields. Yet the pattern didn't behave like seismic noise. Instead of spiking randomly, the pulses rose and fell in steady 23-minute cycles, synchronized across multiple sensors placed hundreds of meters apart. It was as if the stone itself was inhaling and exhaling in time with the planet. When the signal data was mapped onto 3D structural models, the visualization revealed a striking geometry. The current lines converged precisely at the polygonal junctions between the largest andesite blocks, the same seams where magnetite concentrations were highest. Energy appeared to enter through the lower tiers of stone, rise diagonally along stress vectors, enter its stress, and exit through the upper edges in balanced vortices. What once looked like architectural design now resembled a conductive grid. A network built to stabilize, not merely to stand. Acoustic resonance tests added another dimension to the mystery. When low-frequency tones between 50 and 60 Hz were projected near the central terrace, the walls themselves began to vibrate imperceptibly. Sensors embedded in the stone detected standing waves, frequencies bouncing within the masonry, amplifying sound rather than absorbing it. Inside narrow corridors, the air shimmered faintly, as if the chamber were tuned to resonate. Some sections produced harmonic feedback strong enough to alter the magnetic readings in real time. Ancient Andean texts once called Cusco the navel of the world, the point where the Earth's energy gathered and dispersed. For generations, that was dismissed as a metaphor. But with measurable electromagnetic pulses now detected beneath the site, the phrase reads like a technical description rather than a spiritual one. If Sacsayhuamán's design was meant to interact with the planet's natural resonance, its builders were not just architects. They were engineers of planetary scale. Were these fortresses truly places of worship, or the control nodes of a forgotten system built to channel the Earth's electromagnetic breath? Counterarguments and hypothetical consequences. For every extraordinary claim, science demands an ordinary explanation. And by mid-2025, those explanations began to arrive. A team of geophysicists from the French Institute for Research and Development published their independent review of the Cusco anomalies. Their conclusion was sober, almost dismissive. The data, they said, did not require lost technology to be understood. The magnetic variations recorded around the Sacsayhuamán Plateau could be explained by the uneven distribution of magnetite and pyroxene within the andesite bedrock, a natural result of slow volcanic crystallization. Over time, differences in mineral density would have produced subtle magnetic irregularities, creating the illusion of alignment. The fortress, in their view, was remarkable, but still a product of geology and human persistence, not a relic of forgotten science. Hydrologists joined the discussion with a different form of skepticism. The rhythmic pulses captured by the magnetotelluric sensors, those 7 to 8 Hz fluctuations that mirrored the planet's electromagnetic resonance, might not have come from the stone at all. Groundwater moving through the subsoil, they explained, can produce cyclic electrical variations as it interacts with mineral salts and shifting pressure zones. When those hydrological factors were filtered from the model, the rhythmic signal weakened, though, intriguingly, it never vanished entirely. Something in the data continued to breathe. Archaeologists, too, urged caution. If the Inca had engineered an active electromagnetic system, they argued, there should be unmistakable physical evidence. Copper conductors, ceramic insulators, or traces of deliberate heat treatment along the seams. None have been recovered. For them, the strength of Sacsayhuamán lies not in mystery, but in mastery, the result of centuries of empirical observation, each generation refining the craft until stone itself became a living structure of balance and resilience. And yet, the contradictions remain. Why do the same geometric ratios appear in structures that share neither culture nor chronology? Baalbek in Lebanon, Giza in Egypt, Pumapunku in Bolivia? Why do many of these monuments sit precisely on geomagnetic intersections that were only mapped in the satellite age? Coincidence, the skeptics insist. But coincidence repeated across continents becomes pattern, and pattern suggests intention. If the so-called energy convergence of Cusco is merely geological, then nature has replicated human design. If not, then ancient builders once understood the planet as a living field, a body that could resonate, balance, and perhaps even heal itself. The hypothesis remains unproven, but as our instruments grow sharper and our algorithms more perceptive, The border between myth and measurement continues to thin. If these gates were never meant to be worshipped, what happens when they are finally switched on again? The Earth that remembers. When the final simulation ended, the laboratory fell silent. Months of magnetic, acoustic, and geological readings had been distilled into a single, living pattern. A pulse spreading across a digital model of the Earth. Colored lines connected distant points on the map: Sacsayhuamán, Giza, Göbekli Tepe, Angkor, Stonehenge. Each one glowed as a node within the same network, vibrating to a rhythm of 7.8 hertz, the Schumann resonance, the heartbeat of the planet itself. The discovery didn't prove design, only alignment. But alignment across continents and epochs was not something science could dismiss as mere coincidence. If cultures that never shared language, trade, or written memory all built with the same harmonic geometry, then they were either guided by chance or they remembered something the Earth had once taught them. At Cusco, those stones have endured every earthquake for 5 centuries. They have not resisted the Earth's movement. They have harmonized with it. The AI's analysis, drawn from lines of code and data, revealed a truth those ancient builders may have sensed through sound, pressure, and touch. Stability is not achieved by opposition, but through resonance. The parallels were unsettling. The same principles that allow a neural network to balance itself, feedback, correction, rhythm, are mirrored in the design of the ancient walls. Both systems, one digital and one geological, rely on the same pattern of adaptation. It is as if intelligence itself, whether carved in stone or written in silicon, follows the same natural law. To endure, one must learn to listen. Perhaps these fortresses were not built to worship or to defend, but to remember. To preserve a fragment of how the planet breathes, how energy moves through form, how life and matter remain in conversation. And perhaps this conversation never ended. We simply stopped hearing it. Now, as technology learns to sense what the ancients once felt through their hands, that forgotten rhythm is returning. The pulse of the Earth, quiet but constant, echoing through both machine and stone. So as you watch these walls and listen to that low vibration beneath the surface, ask yourself, if the Earth still carries this rhythm within its foundations, are we finally learning to hear it again? Or are we awakening something that has been listening to us all along?